Hello, welcome back to the Twin Times Podcast, episode 18. Today, we have not only one, but two very, very special guests. Their names are Matt Vesely and Michael Tessari. Matt is a film director, and Mike is a director of photography. We're here to talk about their careers and how they started in the film industry and how they got to where they are today, and also about the film they collaborated on in, I think it was like winter of 2022, called Monolith, which is currently on streaming, which is on Binge. It's been getting quite great acclaim internationally as well. So, and we talk about their collaboration on it and how they went, and stars Lily Sullivan. Other than that, let's hop into the episode. Matt.
Hey boys, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
That's good. We're just waiting on Mike.
Yeah, no worries.
Be able to get his mic going. Pardon the pun. There he is. Hello, Mike. How are you, mate?
How are you, Mike? I haven't seen you in ages. What's up?
I know. Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. We should have a beer. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so to start off, tell us a little bit about yourselves and why you wanted to get into the film industry and why you wanted to become a director, Matt, and you wanted to become a DP, Mike. Starting with you, Matt.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Well, when I was a kid, I did a lot of acting as a kid. So I did like theatre at school, and when I was in about year 7, I used to write stories at home. Like I would, did a lot of writing when I was a kid and drawing and lots of that kind of like would make little books and things like that. And when I was in year 7, I got cast in a short film that a colleague at Closer Productions now, who I work with now, Matthew Bate, made when he was fresh out of uni, because his producer had gone to the same high school as me, and he'd sort of gone back. They were in their like early 20s or something, and I was 11 or 12, and he went back to his high school and was looking for a kid to be in this film, and they cast me. And they were really good. They like showed me, how to use the clapperboard and how the camera worked and the shot list, and they sort of talked me through everything. And from then on, I just kind of wanted to make films. I started at a high school that had like a mini DV camera and one computer with Final Cut Pro, and RIP Final Cut Pro. I say that as if that's like the modern thing. It's like long gone. But I just started making films when I was in, I think, 8 or 9. This would be year 9 maybe. Just started mucking around with my friends making stuff, but it all came from wanting to be an actor actually, which I don't really do anymore.
Yeah, right. That's interesting background to be able to start as young as you did and build into what you've become. Yeah. Now you, Mike.
I mean, I went to a school that had a kind of very media and video focus as well. But I'd always loved making images. I grew up with my parents' stills camera. And it was kind of, in school, it was one of the things that kind of made sense to my brain, taking images, and it always kind of felt natural to me. And that was just obviously, something that I just pursued and kind of, chased all through high school, uni, and then out of uni.
Yeah. Well, having worked with you a couple of times, you're definitely quite good at it. So well done.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, he's all right. He's okay.
Sometimes.
For Matt, I've seen that you've done a lot of comedy in the past. Would you say that comedy as a genre suits your writing style a lot more?
It's interesting. I guess the reference here is that my first feature, Monolith, which Mike shot, which is obviously why we're sort of talking to you today, is not a comedy. It's like a science fiction thriller.
What?
It's almost a horror movie, I guess. When we were developing that movie, the producer Bettina Hamilton and the writer Lucy Campbell was in a lab called Film Lab New Voices. So we're developing the idea together, and the idea is you'd have a year to kind of come up with an idea for a low budget. If you got through the year and you were successful, you'd get given financing to make your film, but it was a very small budget. And so we, came up with this idea of doing a science fiction film with one actor, which became Monolith. But we had a few other ideas. A couple of the other ideas were comedy. They were still genre. They were like science fiction. and one was a sci-fi comedy, and one was a horror comedy. And my last couple of shorts were science fiction comedies.
Yeah.
And I was worried. I was like, to Bettina, I was like, is this a bit weird that we're leaning towards the scary one? Like, I don't know. Shouldn't I be doing comedy? And Bettina made me play like a word association game where she was like, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. You got to answer without thinking. If you could have directed one movie in history, like any movie, what would it have been? And I said Alien, like it's in the Ridley Scott's Alien, like instantly. And she was like, cool, we'll do Monolith then. So, and it was like coming home, actually. All the stuff that I watch and enjoy, like I read comics and I play video games and I like sci-fi and horror, and like that's all the stuff that I enjoy. And I had way more fun trying to be scary than trying to be funny. I actually thought it was paradoxically a lot more fun, a lot more freeing. So we'll see. I think comedy will always be a bit of a part of me. As you say, I've like my shorts were comedic. I did stand-up comedy for a few years. Like that stuff will always kind of hint around. Some of the TV projects I've got in development, they're still genre, but they have like a more comedic tone than Monolith, which is quite a, sort of, not Dow, that makes it sound boring. I kind of more serious horror film. So yeah, I don't know that it would suit me more, but it's definitely like, there's always a part of me that likes to make fun of myself. So I guess I'll get back to that at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. And even going from stand-up comedy into film, like that would have been an interesting concept as well.
Well, I was doing film long before I did stand-up. So like as I say, I've been making films since I was a kid. I went to uni, I was working. It was only in 2013 or something. So I was way out of uni when I started stand-up. I did it. I'd always wanted to give it a go. But like you learn a lot about like how to work with an audience, and I met a lot of really cool people. I think comedians as actors make really interesting choices. One of the last two short films I did, but I cast stand-ups in the leads because I just thought that they were comedy films, but they also make really interesting choices. I think they work differently to trained actors. It's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Mike, I'm going to take you back to 2013, so I hope you can remember. But
not really.
You won the Cliff Ellis Award. I just wanted to get a bit of an insight into how you were nominated for that achievement, and looking back on that, are you proud of how far you've come today?
Yeah, I mean, that's an award through the Australian Cinematographers Society. It was for the SAWA branch for like emerging student cinematographers. So I was just finishing uni then, and I'd made a short film with a friend, and that got recognized with that, and it was great. I think just to confirm that you're on the right track, and that all your ideas aren't crazy, and they're kind of you're going in the right direction. I don't know, like it's a long time ago.
I know. I'm sorry about that. It's always good in a way. Like I found the other day, like I've only started my career the last couple of years, but seeing all the credits I've sort of acclaimed over that time, being able to, you don't really stop and smell the roses. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I probably didn't even know I was just a student. Like I hadn't even really dived into the industry. I'd done like a couple of shorts at uni, and this short outside, and maybe I'd assisted on some kind of commercial or corporate. I had no idea about anything at that point. So like looking back, it's really nice. At the moment I was like, sweet, like I get this sweet gold plaque that I can put on my wall. And that was kind of
beautiful.
You'd also, I met you in 2012, I think, Mike, or maybe late 2011 on 52 Tuesdays as well, which is, that was a feature film that won the directing prize at Sundance that you were assisting on. So, you've been around.
Yeah.
He loves your work. Yeah. One of the reasons he hired you. Right? Yeah. So for Matt, working at Closer Productions, especially maybe like in the beginning of your career and working around industry professionals, do you believe that has helped you as a storyteller moving forward?
Yeah, totally. So as you say, I worked with a company called Closer Productions that was founded by a group of 4 filmmakers here. Sophie Hyde, who's an acclaimed director of drama. Matthew Bate, who's a acclaimed documentary filmmaker, Rebecca Summerton, who's a producer, and Brian Mason, who's Sophie's partner and a very good editor and cinematographer. He shoots and edits Sophie's films. I worked with them, and so did Mike on. This is how I met Mike, on a film called 52 Tuesdays. They made, it was their first feature. They were shooting every Tuesday for a year. The film was about a young girl whose mother was transitioning, and the idea was you would see these characters grow and change over the course of a year. So I came in, as I said, I met Matt and Sophie and Brian when I was like 12 years old on these short films, and I kind of looped back around when they were making this film, and I was like, hey guys, remember me? And can I come hang out and help out on the film? And yeah, they gave me a job kind of production managing during the week. I would like set up, because we're shooting 1 day a week for a year. So you kind of have a couple of days each week to kind of set up for next week's shoot. And I would kind of help do that and then work on set as a script supervisor and like continuity. And that was just like a really, I loved working with those guys. They're incredible filmmakers. That film ended up winning, as I said before, the directing prize at Sundance, and I got to go to Sundance with them, and like, it was like kind of life-changing thing. And then I spent the next, I still work with them, not in a kind of permanent capacity anymore, but project to project. But I worked with them on a sort of casual to part-time basis for like 10 years and on a lot of their projects. And we just, the way Closer works is incredibly collaborative, and a lot of development, a lot of story development. And so that all kind of kicked off on 52 Tuesdays. I'd done writers' rooms. I'd done some work experience in writers' rooms in the Eastern States. And when we were doing, we would look at next week's script, and we'd sort of sit around for a few hours and kick it around. And then when we started making television, I was the guy that had been in writers' rooms, so I could kind of tell them, oh, this is how a writers' room kind of looks, and this is how it kind of works. And yeah, so I just kicked around helping them, and then eventually just mostly working in development and script producing for them on their TV shows. And man, they taught me everything I know. They produced one of my shorts, they EP'd another one of my shorts. The collaborators that I work with, Bettina, who produced Monolith, I met through working at Closer. Mike, I met through working at Closer. I really look up to those guys, and having a kind of mentor, a creative mentor, as well as a kind of career mentor, is a really useful thing for any young filmmaker. And I think if you can find someone that is willing to give you that time, and then it's an incredibly lucky and privileged thing to have. So I just sort of sat around with them a lot of the time, and just like by osmosis, or just sucking in all their knowledge as they were putting films together, including the producers, not just Soph when she was directing, but Soph and Beck when they were producing, helping finance films. Like I was there when they were financing Animals, Sophie's second film. And it's everything to me, my time with Closer. So I can't overemphasize how important it's been.
Yeah, it's great to see how appreciative you are of that company that's been in your life for a while. And
they're like my family too now. And like Soph is directing her new film at the moment, and just a couple of weeks shoot in Adelaide, and asked if I'd come script supervise on it, which is not something I do anymore, but I used to do it for Sophie. And it was like, well, yeah, of course. So I just went and did it for a couple of weeks, and it was like old times. It was really fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well done. When Matt contacted you on doing the job for Monolith, we are going to get into Monolith soon, lads. Don't worry. Were you keen on doing it, or did it take a bit of convincing?
Yeah, I hated it. There's no way.
No. It was, instantly. I obviously knew of the project because Film Lab was an initiative run by the South Australian Film Corp, and so it was kind of around, and people were talking about it, and the team was amazing. Matt, Bettina, and Lucy, were just, from the outside, before I even met them, I was like, they're such a great team, ticking all these different boxes. And I read the script, and the script was really amazing as well. And I could read the kind of cinematic potential, and it was one location. And so that, the main question I had was, where was this location?
Yeah, fair enough. Like the location was great when we saw it in the film. Was it the Adelaide Hills? Yeah.
Yeah, it's up in the Adelaide Hills. I remember we originally had set it on the coast, and our location manager, Scott McCartan, who's this incredible location manager. Like everyone who works with him is always blown away by how resourceful he is and great to work with. And he he found these houses, and we went in on the South Australian coast. There's these great cliffs down, you go past Wollonga, and further down we're going down to like Carrickling. We got all the way down to it's the one you get on to go to Kangaroo Island. We got down there.
Cape Jervis with that, yeah, Jarvis.
Cape Jervis, yeah. And they were lovely houses with these amazing views, but they didn't quite have that cinematic potential. Hey, Mike, they just kind of looked okay and like they're beautiful to live in, but like to shoot, like it was like, there's not quite working, and it didn't quite have that moment. There's a really important moment early in the film where you first step out of the recording studio. It's about 20 minutes into the film. She's been in the recording studio the whole time, and she steps out into the rest of the house. And you kind of need this moment to be like instantly communicate kind of the privilege that she comes from. This kind of wealth needs to kind of like in a single shot needs to be like, oh shit, look at this house. So we said to Scott, don't worry about it, just go and find whatever you can. And he like found it. He found a video online, an architectural video, like, just like promoting their firm, that they built this amazing house. He like cross-referenced it on Google Maps. He worked out where he thought it was. He went up and rang the doorbell, and we got this house. And Mike and Lucy and I were actually down the coast looking at a house. I think that was near Carrickling.
Yeah.
While we got the email from Scott saying, hey, I've found this one that I think we can get. And we like looked, I remember we're in this house and I was showing Mike the photos. Hey, look at this one. This one looks pretty cool. And Mike refused to look at them. He's like, I don't want to see. I don't want to get my hopes up. That looks too good. I don't want to know. And I was like, Mike, I think we've got, like, this one sounds available. Like, I think we can have this if we want it. And he's like, no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Didn't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
Have some trust in it.
No, we'd looked at so many houses and this one just ticked every box, and it was just so perfect. And I was like, oh, I can't tell me you've got it. Otherwise, I just can't get my hopes up.
Yeah.
And little things that only a cinematographer would notice. Like as a director, I'm thinking, okay, that like looks right. It speaks to the character or whatever. But Mike's thinking about things like depth. Like it's got long hallways, so you can shoot like kind of, you can get depth in your shots. It's got different textures on all of the walls, which give you different things. It's so many windows for light that he can play with. So, like you're thinking about those things, right, Mike? And so the combination of our two wants for this house was kind of satisfied. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. So when like choosing Michael as your director of photography, was he the right choice? Or did you have like other options? If he wasn't available,
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Might have been the wrong choice. Yeah. No, look, I've worked with cinematographers before, and including great collaborators. But this film needed a couple of things that were really important to me. And one was that someone that could work fast. It's low budget, and we needed someone that could work quickly and was experienced at that. And Mike had just come off a TV show where he was working incredibly fast, so he was used to that. We also really wanted someone that was really hungry and excited for it. That was super important, that it wasn't someone that was just like kind of doing the job or like helping me out or something like that. It was someone that was like, no, this is going to be a big deal for me too. That's the spirit of Film Lab, is it was like giving everyone a shot, like giving us our chance to kind of make our mark. And the cinematographer, especially on set, is so involved in setting the tone of the set and so involved in setting the kind of the vibe of how we're going to work, that it needed someone that was really going to be hungry. I had Brian Mason from Closer and Bettina had both said, and I'd worked with Mike years ago in a different capacity, but had both said, have you seen what Mike's up to these days? He's really kicking goals. I went to his website and watched his reel and was like, holy shit, yeah, it's really, really good stuff. And like had a tone and a mood to it as well. Like there was we wanted it to feel a bit gritty or have like something going on, not be too clean, not be too shiny. And Mike, that's the world that Mike was working in anyway. So it was this combination of those two things. It was like, okay, he's shooting the kinds of pictures that we really like, and he's obviously really, really good, but he's also like in the right position in his career for this to be important to him. And I wanted it to be as important to him as it was to me. And that Mike and I just had a coffee, and that was very clear. We were like, okay, cool. We're like in the same position where we're both trying to do our thing and like get some big, full length credits. Mike had already done one low budget feature, was quite a while ago. And so he was like still trying to find that. And so that was it, Mike. I hope you don't mind me saying, but like that was a big part for me, was like, yeah, man, like I could feel Mike's like hunger and passion for it, which was really cool. And that was evident when we started getting to work as well. Like we were just both in there all day, like kind of figuring it out. It was really good.
Would you say it was important to have someone that you trusted and you had worked with in the past before to go into a project like
look,
this?
well, I mean, I guess I knew. Yeah, I mean, I guess I knew Mike, but I had not worked with him as a cinematographer. So that's always a new relation. That's an important relationship and a new one to build. So look, there's some nerves around that. I don't know if I'd say nerves, but there's always some teething around that, like to figure it out. But I don't know. We had a simpatico very quickly. I think, Mike. Like you get pre-production, and Mike was in the office all the time with me, and we'd sat and work out the shots together, and it felt pretty easy. I think, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we saw it the same way. We were both on the same page pretty early. And we obviously, like Matt said, we knew each other. We knew we weren't going to be massive, clashes of personalities. And that's always, a good starting point, because sometimes you don't even have that, honestly. But, we were, it was great from day one in the offices. That just kind of made sense. And we were, watching films and, throwing out references, and it was great.
Mm. Well, it was evident probably to see on set, Matt, but watching the film, it was really well shot and really, really beautiful.
He did do a good job. He did a good job. He was the right choice.
That's right. Well,
thanks, guys.
Mike, in doing my research, I saw that you worked on one of your first feature films was Awoken. That film. How did you, in a way, get that job and that gig? How did that come about?
That was early on. I think it was 2017 now. That was through a kind of director, collaborator, and kind of good friend of mine, Daniel Phillips. That was his first film. Mm-hmm. And initially I was still I hadn't shot a feature yet, and it wasn't certain that I'd be able to shoot that one, and it was kind of a lot of things had to fall into place for me to be able to film that, and it was an amazing kind of learning experience for me, and has taught me so much. That first film, it teaches you so much. I mean, every film you do, you learn so much and you grow so much as a person, but that first one, you're straight in the deep end.
Yeah, well, that's what I find. Every film set, in a way, is something different every time, whether it's a short or a TV show. You're always learning something different, and everyone has their own take as well on how to run things, which is interesting. Now, for Matt, like you said previously, you had done stand-up comedy in the past. Do you believe that the writing style for stand-up comedy, and then when you're writing a TV show or a feature film, is it different or is it somewhat similar?
I mean, it's pretty different, and certainly in the focuses that I have. To be honest, I'm not a very good stand-up. I mean, I'm okay, but like I don't put a lot of work into my craft just because it's not my main passion, right? Like I was just kind of for fun, and I'd just write 5 minutes of stand-up and give it a go kind of thing. And it's a lot of like writing stuff and then stage and actually shaping it on stage. I mean, like, okay, that didn't quite work, strip some stuff out, try to maybe underwrite some stuff so that you've got a bit of room on stage to kind of move with it. And my focus in screenwriting has always been on like structure and story. They're the things that they're my strong suits. And so those are things are quite different. You certainly like writing on something like Aftertaste, which was a comedy show we did for ABC. Like there's a bit of like joke writing that you kind of like, I learned some stuff doing stand-up. As I say, I'm not a great stand-up, but I learned some stuff about what does and doesn't work that could apply to the show. But I think even in that show, like my strength was on structuring narrative and stuff, and working with the two writers, the two creators of that show, Julie DeFina and Matthew Bate, were like, they were holding the tone of the show. It was really their show. And so I was like kind of helping structure, do some narrative stuff. So yeah, so it's a different kettle of fish, I think. Yeah. Does that answer your question? I think it is.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. And Aftertaste was on the ABC, wasn't it? It was a great show. I think my mum's watched a few episodes. She's an avid watcher of the ABC, so something's always on. Yeah, so it's good.
We ran into some issues there because obviously you get a lot of avid ABC watchers who watch anything on the ABC who maybe weren't prepared for how much swearing was in Aftertaste. So we did get a lot of, because he was supposed to be like foul mouth, like Gordon Ramsay style, like chef. Played by Eric Thompson, who was Australia's dad on Back to the Rafters. So it was like seeing Eric Thompson like drop a C-bomb a bunch of times in an episode. It's like people get a bit shocked.
Not acclimatized. Yeah. Into Monolith, guys. Just want to say before we get into it, it was a great film to watch when it first. Well, I watched it on streaming when it came out, so I didn't see it in the cinemas. But you guys obviously went to the premiere at the Adelaide Film Festival. What was the sort of in a way, reception like there? I know it was a while ago, but you could sort of.
It's a weird one because I mean it was great, but like that's your hometown, and there was so many of our friends and family. The audience super supportive. The Adelaide Film Festival has supported my career for a long time. South Australian Film Corporation, etc., etc. So it sort of feels like cheating a little bit. It was a beautiful night, wasn't it, Mike? It was really great. We were super stoked with the response, but it was a bit like, what does this like? Are these people like they are rooting for me? So what's it going to be like when we go somewhere where they don't know? Our international premiere was South by Southwest, which was in March last year, and that was a bit more of a real like oh shit kind of experience. But I mean that was pretty exciting. At South by Southwest, you don't buy tickets to a film, you get a film pass, a badge, and you just rock up to any screening and like first come first serve. You just kind of walk in. What that does mean is that when you're a filmmaker, you have no idea. Like normally you'd be like, oh, the tickets are sold out. This one we're like, we have no idea. Is anyone going to turn up? And we went and had dinner before. I think we were playing at 9:30. We went and had dinner. And then we went to the cinema. It was playing at the Alamo Draft House. And there's like a courtyard out the front. And it was just full of people. And our film was the only one coming up. And it was like they were all there to try to get tickets. And like they were turning people away and jamming people in the seats. Mike didn't get a seat. He had to sit in the like there's like a staff seat or something in the corner, like just wedged where you like barely see the screen. Like it was just it was chaotic. So it was cool. It was really exciting.
Cool. Yeah. Into it. So having a podcaster as like the main part of film, why did you want to have a podcaster as the main part of the film? Was it because that's like the popular thing nowadays to have a podcast? That's what we are doing. But yeah. Well,
I think the original idea I pitched to Lucy and Bettina was about a psychologist interviewing people after an alien abduction, and it would be like a bunch of like in a room, like kind of like therapy sessions, and you would gradually piece together this thing. And Bettina, the producer, was like pitched the podcast idea. She was excited. She felt there was something in the zeitgeist. It was 2021. The idea of like truth being very malleable, the idea of new media kind of being able to manipulate audiences in interesting ways. And so that felt like it had more thematic resonance to us about what we're talking about. Could we do an alien invasion story that at its heart it would be about, especially if you're doing a story that's about one actor. We were really keen on marrying the narrative and the theme and the production methodology. So if you start with this idea of it's going to be one actor, then thematically, like naturally it comes from that. It's like, why is this character get to tell the story? Like, why is it them and not someone else? And if it's them, it's all their perspective. What about everyone else's perspective? And so that becomes your theme, and your theme becomes about like, well, who gets to control narrative these days? And it's new media, it's podcasting, it's social media, these things that have less safeguards in place, I guess, to kind of less checks and balances around truth and ethics and those kinds of things. So it was just a good space to kind of play with a character.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely an interesting take. That's what I'll say. I've never seen in a way a film based around a podcast. So it's definitely an interesting take. To Mike, and probably to you, Matt, as well. If you want to jump in on the question, what made you want to open the first shot with a microphone? Really? Yeah. It was an interesting way to start it off. And what sort of type of lens was used for this shot?
Yeah, I mean, we Matt and I obviously in pre had spoken about as we kind of had a bible of chapters that we wanted to split this film into and have a progression of the visuals that kind of told the character story throughout. And it starts I forget how many chapters there were, Matt, but it starts 9, very static. Yeah, and very static. And then we'd escalate the kind of movement as the characters kind of losing control, as the interviewer's losing control. And then that builds to kind of, a crescendo of some handheld stuff at the end. So, this opening was always going to be quite static, quite locked off. Matt had this idea of, hiding the interviewer's face for a little while. And so we kind of, the shot of the microphone kind of made sense. It's the motif of the film, and just holding on that and letting her kind of move in and out of the shot really kind of worked in my mind.
Well, I think the boys are actually talking about the like ECU macro.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So it's scripted in the film, and this is an idea that Lucy and Bettina and I had when we were writing the film. Like, it should open with no picture. Like it's a film about listening and story, and like who's in charge of the story. So we had this idea of like, you would start with no picture, and it would be someone else's story. Actually, it starts with a different voice entirely, played by Damon Harriman, and he's like telling this story. This kind of what sounds like first like a creepy horror story, but ends up becoming ridiculous. And by the end, you're like, oh, this guy's full of shit. And we shift onto who's listening to him, and it's our hero. And so it was about like kind of setting the audience's expectation about you're just going to be listening, but also you can't trust who you're listening to, right? Like you might be presented with a story that might not be what this film is actually about, like setting that expectation. So, and we went through a lot of different openings. That was actually like, the film is mostly very close to the script. The beginning was the one bit that we like changed a lot in the edit. We were like trying to find something that would work and have clearer access for the character. And we went back and forth taking that out, so like not doing that. And in the end, we just decided it was mostly about sticking to our guns. We were like, no, the whole point of this was so that we're going to start on black. I know it's going to be harder to sell to a streamer, or like it's going to be a sort of bolder choice, but that's the choice that we want to make. So we went back to that. And one of the things that we thought would be interesting is like gradually it's a very slow fade up that you realize that you're actually looking at an image. And this is again about the audience just being in this frame of mind of searching for clues, of searching for understanding and what they're being presented with. And it's a macro shot of the microphone that we kind of like start there, and then we cut out wider and we see that she's setting up her podcast studio. And Mike, we just shot that in your office. That was way in post. We did that like way after the shoot.
Wow.
And you had like a macro lens, I think I saw.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a workaround I had, because we shot on these adapted medium format Hasselblad lenses, and so I had basically like extension tubes that make it get closer, but you lose a lot of light. So it was just in the office and trying to focus.
Where you are now?
Yeah, different office, but same idea.
Right. No, it was definitely
then after that, it cuts to Lily talking to camera, like on a webcam, apologizing for this thing that she's, this sort of incident that's happened at her previous workplace. She's sort of been cancelled, as it were, for, acting unethically in the newspaper. And that is not in the script. That is an exercise that I gave Lily in pre-production, just trying to find ways. We didn't rehearse the script that much, but we were trying to find ways to, help develop the character. And so over the course of the couple of weeks leading up to the shoot, she's in Sydney, I would send her exercises to do. And one of them was, I want you to record the video apology. Don't worry, no one's going to see it. It's just for me. And then she did this great thing. She wrote that. She like did it to camera, and it was just her finding the character. But in the edit, we were having this problem of like, well, there's this great intellectual idea of like, oh, we'll start with someone else, and then it will flip, but we won't see her face and like blah blah. But it was actually like, in practice, you want to know the character that you're meeting and be on her side very quickly. So we rewrote very slightly the ending of the story, Damon Harriman's story, where he turns it on her. He starts going, I know you. I saw what you did. Like, I saw like your apology video. You're a liar. Like, he starts turning on her, which was like a new thing to more quickly start the story turning around onto her. And then to the editor, Tanya Mimi, I was like, oh, I do have this one thing on my laptop. I said I wouldn't use it, but let's see what happens when we put it in. And we just put that video in, and we're like, oh, there you go. There's the beginning of the movie. I was like, I better ask Lily before I use this. She agreed, but she wanted to film it again, so she shot it again. But she wrote that.
Yeah, well, like I was about to say, it was a great way to open it, and it really hooked the audience. When I first started to watch it, I was like, this is interesting, and the voice comes in, and then you open on that mic, and it was just incredible to be able, and it hooks you in straight away. So that was absolutely a great way to start. When speaking of the actress Lily Sullivan, she played it great. the main character. Was she like the right fit, the only actress that you wanted, or was there other options if she wasn't available?
We had been asking about some different actors, and it was actually Lily's agent that suggested her. So Bettina, our producer, has worked a lot in television and film here as a production coordinator and a production manager. So she knows the agents really well. And so she could reach out to a bunch of agents and was like, hey, there were some names that we asked about, but also like who are you working with? And it was Lil's agent who put her up for it. It was like, hey, I've got this woman. She just shot Evil Dead Rise. It's not coming out for a bit, but like she's looking for a new challenge. I think you'd really like her. Sent us her reel. I realized that I'd seen her on TV, and I was like, oh, that Lily Sullivan, right? Okay. And she's just exceptional. And we just were like, okay, we were working very quickly, so we didn't have a lot of time to think. And so we were like, okay, well, Lily's great. She's got a great voice, which helps for a podcaster. She's got this kind of like sort of almost gravelly, like kind of textured voice, which is really excellent. Clearly an excellent performer. Like the roles that she'd done, she's been working for a long time, very experienced. So we just wanted to meet her and see, similar to what I said about Mike, of like, is she going to be like a part of the team and be up for the fight of a low budget film? Yeah. Or is she just coming for just to do a job and like whatever and want a trailer and stuff? And she was so down to earth. Like we just had one Zoom with her, didn't make her audition. We knew she was an excellent actor, just spoke with her. So down to earth, clearly actually liked the script, clearly was genuinely excited to do it. And so we just signed her off that. We're like, great, let's go. And which is always, you know, scary because it's only one actor. So like if this doesn't work, like the whole film's not going to work. But I think it was 2 or 3 days in, we were shooting the conversation with Klaus she has with the art collector. And there's a lot of listening in that scene. There's like quite long stretches where she's not saying anything. She's just listening. And Lucy and I were behind the split. It's like this close-up shot kind of here, like really tight on her face, just watching her listen. And she was so captivating, like her eyes, and just, she was able to draw your attention without doing anything in a way that was that we looked at each other and we were like, oh, phew, like I think we're going to be okay here. So I mean, I can't imagine, like, Lily's the whole movie. She's the whole reason that it works. She's a great friend now. I can't imagine her not being in it. And if we had not found her, like, we'd been in a different position. We wouldn't have gone to South by Southwest. You know, it would have been a different thing.
Yeah, well,
very lucky.
Because of the friendship that you've somewhat maybe developed with Lily, would you be willing to work with her again on other projects?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we always talk about that. We just caught up with her at the Actors. She came up to the Actor Awards and hung out with us. And we were like, yeah, until next time, mate, let's go. So yeah. She's no, we definitely work with her again. And I mean, she's still been working for us doing press and, you know, all this crazy stuff that actors have to do. So she's been a big supporter of the film.
Yeah, beautiful. To Mark, there was a lot of shots shot in that house, and it was like a big glass window in a way. So I just wanted to ask, was there a lot of natural lighting used in this film, or did you have to manipulate it a bit?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously, you know, it wasn't a massive budget film, so we were always going to have to roll with the punches, you know, what the weather and the time of day gave us. So obviously with giant windows like that, you are setting your exposure to, you know, what the window, and then you're supplementing and kind of finessing and shaping, and just like trying to keep consistency, because obviously the sun goes from the, you know, the right hand side across to the left hand side throughout the day, and we're shooting, you know, massive monologue pieces that over the course of half a day or longer. And so just keeping consistency was a challenge, but, you know, I wouldn't have it any other way. It was a beautiful location. Those windows add so much, you know, seeing the world outside.
Yeah, they were absolutely.
And we always wanted to shoot into the light, didn't we, Mike? We talked about when you shoot into the light, so you get that nice like wrap around the face. This is all things that I was learning. I was like, Mike, I like that cool thing where the light kind of shapes the face. And he's like, oh yeah, that's shooting into the light. I was like, cool. Well, now I've learned something. So yeah, that worked out perfectly, right? We're just always shooting into that window.
Yeah, except when it was night and we'd look the other way. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, use what you have in a way. Who was both your cam assists? Who was working with you?
So my focus pillar was Tim Carlier, who I've worked
Timmy.
with. Yeah, you know Tim. Yeah. And Isabel Armstrong was the second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
With a few
nice.
days
Mel
from
Grant.
Ben Fernandez as well.
Few days from Ben. Yeah.
Yeah. Have they always, in a way, been your go-to people?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely. Tim's moved to London now, so he's not my go-to anymore. It's a bit hard. No, I always, there's so many great people in this state, and finding the right collaborators for the job is half of the process.
Yeah, they're very efficient in the way they work. So that's what I wanted to ask that. There are a lot of like heavy dialogue pieces for Lily Sullivan. Did you give her time to memorize that a lot, whether it be on the set or during her time away from the set? Was there a lot of time that she got to memorize those heavy pieces?
Well, she managed to get through them, so I guess she did it. She talked about like doing it like a play. So the sort of few weeks leading up to the shoot, she memorized like the whole script. Now she couldn't do the whole script in one, but she'd have it basically in her. And then the way we scheduled the film, we shot pretty much chronologically, but we would back and forth a little bit to make sure that any of those really long scenes, so there's like a series of big conversations, we'd never have two of them on a day, and we'd always have a bit of time between so that she could do one of those big scenes and then that night be like preparing the next one, so she didn't have to hold the whole film in her head. But she did she did a pretty excellent job of having most of it down before we started, and then just like sharpening it up on each one the night before. But there was times during the set where what we had scheduled, we'd get to the end of the day and be like this happened once where Lil was like, look, I don't think I can go into another one tomorrow morning. Like, can we move that? Just, I need some space. And we could move it around, and all the choices that we were making are all to support her. Like, she's the most important thing in the film. And so I think that's your main job as a director, is to give the actors an environment to shine. And so working with Whale, the first AD, like just finding ways to kind of make it as easy and beneficial for her. And that's why we kind of shot chronologically too. It was like, that's easier for Lily. That's going to give her a ride. We'll see that in the performance. It will be better for it. So, she did an absolutely incredible job. Interestingly, she's sort of better. She knows the lines better in earlier takes. And I think because she's not thinking as much, she just kind of she just does it. And so she would nail it. Yeah. And then the more you would go along and more takes would be when she'd have to like find a line or like go back. And I think that's because, she just starts getting into her own head more. So she's a really instinctual actor. It's really interesting to watch her work.
It seems like with this film, there was a lot of dark tones with the lighting. This is sort of a question for both of you, I reckon. Was that a bit of a deliberate choice in a way, in terms of how you wanted the film to be shot?
I mean, Matt and I, we kind of went into this with a bit of a mood board, and like I said, had some reference films that we were kind of picking images from, and a certain lighting style, like Matt's already said, like shooting into the shadow side of the face, and all these things we wanted to do to kind of have the images look a specific way, and the windows also dictate that as well. The big windows, most of it's looking towards them. So there's always going to be some level of shadow. Otherwise it starts feeling artificial if you lift those kind of shadows, brighter, or, to match the window, the outside. It just doesn't, it doesn't look real, and it's not very cinematic. So, that was the style we went in with, and we really stuck to it, and we pushed it as well. There's a scene in there where she's having a bit of a breakdown against the window, and we just let her play in shadow, and I was like, oh, like Matt, like, this is dark, and Matt's like, go with it. This is be brave, do it. And we're just following her against the window, and she goes, it's quite dark in her face, but it fits the moment of the film, and I've grown to love it.
That's great. Want to chime in, Matt, or you feel like Mike's answered?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we got very lucky that it was a very wet winter in Adelaide. It could look so dry out there, but it looks almost European sometimes. If the gum trees weren't there, you'd be like, we're in Europe. But that helped. And we had a couple of days where it would be really bright sun and you can tell those scenes, but most of it was like relatively overcast, which really helped for that too, and was a blessing. Like I was kind of hoping it would rain every day and just be gloomy and scary, but we got about as close to that as we could realistically have hoped for in South Australia, so
yeah, that was great. Who was the gaffer, Mike?
It was Roberto Caris. He's a local gaffer, and he was great.
Have you worked with him before?
Yeah, I've worked with him on kind of most of my other projects, but the lighting package was small. It was a small budget film. It was a van package, so it was about letting the windows do most of the work and then shaping and working from there.
Yeah, cool. Now, I would say the second half of the film, when Lily Sullivan's character discovers the birthday video.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry.
This is the part where you pause the podcast, you go watch Monolith, and then you come back.
Yes, please. Yes. Go watch Monolith. When writing that part of the story, why did you want that to have a significant impact on the second half of the story? As she's becoming I would say more paranoid.
That stuff is all Lucy. So I mean, as a writer, I thought I was a bit worried about collaborating with another writer, not because I don't respect Lucy's work, but because I was like, will I be able to let that stuff go? Like, am I going to be too control freak? And I actually really loved it. And there was a good balance, I think, between stuff that we had talked about and stuff that was all Lucy bringing new stuff. So early on in that film lab, we were developing big picture stuff, like the broad strokes of the story, the big turning points. Lucy and I had a day where we broke the structure together, came up with the structure. But that character, and we had really loose things about the character, like she's going to be a journalist that has, had something go wrong in her career, and now she's trying to claw her way back. We had that idea. But the stuff about which becomes the real beating heart of the film, of the fact that the interviewer, as she's named, that it's her own personal story that's really the crux of the film, that it all turns back in on something that happened in her past, was all Lucy. And it sort of has a thematic resonance about class and privilege and all these things, which was not something we had talked about in the development room. That was all something that Lucy came back with when she wrote her first treatment. And it was a really exciting moment. You read that and you're like, oh, there's some real meat to this now. There's some real especially emotional or character weight to it, which is going to be exciting, not just narrative. So I mean, that midpoint was a midpoint I think that Lucy had pretty early on, that the arrival of this package. And I think when we had spoken about it, we were like, the midpoint has to be something real happens. So she's been talking to all these people, and then something physical in her space comes and flips the story on its head. I think that was the extent of the conversation that we had. And so she came up with this idea. She gets this video that is from her past, and pretty early on that was in the structure. I think that was in the first draft of the script. That comes from my background in working in development, of knowing structure and the kind of beats that you need for story to work. Kind of having those conversations with Lucy, and then Lucy just finding the kind of the detail and the character within it.
Yeah, that sort of moment in the film, it really takes you for the ride of what's going to happen next, in a way. Yeah, so it's really well done.
Well, it's every scene I mean, screenwriting is a form of writing that is all about economy and making sure that every scene is turning your story or driving it forward. And we talked really on about how every conversation has to have a big turning point in it, where both the narrative is pushed forward and the character makes a choice, basically makes a decision that speaks to her character or turns the story in a new direction. It'll be things like early on she, decides to record them without their permission, or takes their words out of context. She's making these choices all the way through. And so you're constantly looking for that. And I think when you hit that midpoint, the narrative really kind of takes over. It's from that point, off we go, and it becomes really a kind of a race to the bottom of searching for these clues, and they click, 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 click. Whereas the first half, it's a slow burn. We're trying to figure out where the character fits within the story.
Mike, were there any dolly shots or handheld shots used in this film? I noticed in one of the scenes that the camera was a little jittery. That was probably on your end a little bit, but I just thought I'd ask that question.
Yeah. I kind of I was saying before, we had a kind of chapter Bible that we wanted to stick to for this one, and the visuals had to progress and match the kind of the interviewer's, progression through the story and where she's at that certain period of time. So it was very static and kind of composed to start with, and then we escalated and brought in some dollies and some moves, and she loses control of the narrative, she'd lose control of the frame, and we'd leave her behind or sometimes, or she'd be off the edge, she wouldn't be kind of holding the whole frame. And then that kind of culminates in the point where she's kind of fully lost control. And then Matt had this, great idea for a oneer, which is handheld, and follow her, and then we come back with her, and there's a little thing called like a Texas switch where we kind of had a stunt double come in and swap with her, and that was all handheld, and then from then on it's kind of chaos, and we run with her down to the forest, and that's handheld, and so it does get jittery. That's a way to put it.
No, well done. It was very good. The way the film ended, it was very striking. Was this always the plan when coming up with the idea for the ending, or did you have like multiple endings?
No, that ending was pretty early on. I think always the plan is like, how long's a piece of string? I mean, we still had to come up with it at some point, but I think it was probably it was pretty early on. Like the one idea I will claim is her vomiting the brick. Like that was mine, and I was like, and I wouldn't let that go all through development. Lucy would change things, and I'd be like, as long as the brick, she's still vomiting the brick, right? Like, got to vomit the brick. So that was pretty early, and that stayed all the way through. And then it was again a structural thing of like, we were like, okay, third act, we want the story to escalate, we want the theme to kind of change, but we also we have to reflect that in our methodology, our whole thesis of our production. And our whole thesis was like doing a science fiction film with one actor. So if it's going to escalate, how do we escalate that? Well, there's got to be a second person, right? That's the biggest way to escalate this film, is like someone else is there. Who could it be? Well, it doesn't really make sense for it to be anyone because we haven't seen anyone. So if someone random comes in, that doesn't mean anything. So I guess it has to be her. Like, it was really like quite a natural way that we developed that. It was a really organic thing that kind of came out of that. So that was pretty early on that we decided that would be what would happen. And obviously that feeds back into the rest of the script, that all the characters are speaking about when they've received a brick, that they're changing or like becoming someone else. And then that ending and then obviously at the end they fight, one of them dies, and we don't really know which one has survived. And that again felt like the only way we could end the film. I think in a film like ours especially, but I think in most films, when you end with definitive answers, you remove the kind of audience's participation in the story. You just tell them instead of them being engaged in the story, and it demystifies it in a way that's not very helpful, particularly in a film that's about like mysteries, and whether we read too much into mysteries, and how much of our own story we bring to a mystery, and et cetera, et cetera. So people get frustrated with that, some people, but to be honest, I think they'd be more frustrated if we gave them an answer. I think they'd be like, well, that was kind of lame. So I prefer them to be like, what? Then lame.
Yeah. I think it's better that you did it that way. It leaves the audience guessing a little bit and questioning. And like, it was that brick scene was like quite shocking to watch, to be honest.
It's a big shift in the kind of feeling of the film as well. It's been so internal and like so dialogue driven that for it to be very guttural and physical and like visceral was always the kind of idea of that moment that would like shift on a dime and be like, oh shit, like we've really like gone somewhere new here. And it felt like that on set too, because that basically with the first 2 weeks, we shot for 3 weeks. The first 2 weeks were all of the first part of the film up until that moment pretty much. And then we get back on the Monday and we're like vomiting bricks and running around and strangling people and all this stuff. And it was like, we on set, we're like, oh shit, we're making a horror movie. Let's feel like we're making a different movie now. And that was always the feeling that we wanted to have. Yeah.
Now with all the global success Monolith's been getting, obviously you said South by Southwest, it was there, and having it premiered at the Adelaide Film Festival. I think it's been shown in the States, and also I think there's a premiere in the UK coming up. Is that right, Matt?
We did it. We had a small theatrical release in the US. and went out digital there. And our digital release was last month in the UK and Ireland, and then it's rolling out in Europe over the next sort of 3 or 4 months. France is getting a theatrical release, which is cool. So for a film to get a release of any kind is really exciting, and we're very grateful to all of our partners, XYZ and Bluefinch and Wellgo in the USA, and all these guys have been releasing the film. Have been great to us for our little film. And Mike Flanagan watched it and said he liked it, which was cool. So you get these little moments where you're like, it feels worth it.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, this is a question to both of you. Did you think it would go this far in terms of because it's a short but low budget film? Did you think it would get this
market attention?
Yeah.
We had always, the aim of the film was to get into a good festival. You never know if you're going to, but that was always that was the point for us. We were like, we want to go to festivals. That's going to really help us as filmmakers, allow us to meet people, allow us to kind of hopefully make another film. So, we were not expecting to get in South by Southwest, but we were definitely hoping for it. It was always our aim. Actually, when we started, we were like, we want to go to South by. That's what we want to do. So really rewarding to get to go. And then I think anything beyond that was just gravy to us. So the fact that we had it was small, but it played in movie theaters in America, which is crazy. And now we never expected that to happen. It was only 10 screens around the US for, a week or two. But even so, we just never in a million years thought that would happen. So yeah, we've been super grateful for the response. We've had, nice reviews. We got certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which was a really cool moment. We were like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, the response has been about as good as you can hope for, I think, from such a small film. And we're just here to make more films. So we just want to keep making. Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything to add there, Mike?
No, I mean, it was great. I hadn't been to a big festival of that before, so I went to South by with them, and it was it was a great time, and just an amazing experience, and I hope to do it again one day.
Show us your tattoo, Mike. Show us your tattoo. This is from the movie, right? Which is from the film. But then in Austin, Mike got a little one too. Yeah.
We had some drinks. We were celebrating, and we're on the main street of Austin, and I got a Monolith tattoo.
Yeah, right on. I would like to be clear as well that I was also, a few drinks deep, but I did turn to you before and said, Mike, don't let this be about peer pressure. If you don't want this, don't get it. And you were like, no, man, let's do it. And I was like, woo.
Yeah. It was all peer pressure. Everyone. It was all peer pressure. No, it was good. It was a great moment.
Yeah, no, great. Absolutely great. If you are allowed to say, lads, what are you currently working on?
What are you up to? I want to know.
I finished shooting another film at the end of last year, which was called With or Without You, directed by Kelly Schilling, so that's in post. And I'll pop into the grade of that sometime soon, and that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, we're just writing. So Lucy, we want to make a film together, Lucy, Bettina, and myself again. So Lucy's writing a kind of cosmic horror science fiction film. At the moment, she's in just treatment at the moment that we're working on together. Then I've got, a horror film of my own that I've been writing and a TV pilot. So yeah, it's just fallow moment of writing and developing. And so it'll take a little while to kind of get through that. Yeah. But yeah, we just want to keep making films. And I think that genre is certainly what I want to keep working in, is in science fiction and horror, and those kinds of things that's just the coolest stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Final question, boys. I just want to say thank you for coming on. And speaking about your film, it's also great to see you both again. And I'm sure we'll cross paths down the line.
Of course, yeah. Nice to see you boys. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah. Oh, no worries, mate. If you had any advice to give to your younger self, for example, for you, Mike, getting that award back in 2013, and for you, Matt, probably starting at Closer, or even as a young actor, what would you say?
Do you want to
go? I think one of the things that I've learned growing older is that, and the advice I would probably give to myself when I was a bit younger, is that it doesn't all have to happen right now. You don't need to rush. So I think I put a lot of pressure on myself when I was younger for like, oh, I've got to be doing, it has to happen. Like, why aren't I like getting where, like, you know, why haven't I made a feature film yet when I'm 21 years old or whatever, you know, like, I think it's okay. Like, your life is made of many parts. It's not just filmmaking. And I think it's okay to look after yourself and look after your mental health and not beat yourself up. Like, it's a journey and it's going to take a while. And it being a journey does not mean that it's not right for you and not going the way that it needs to go. Monolith was a film that I made, you know, when I was younger, later than I had anticipated making a feature, right, in my life. But at the same time, I can't imagine having made a film earlier. I think about how much all the experiences that I had led to that moment and how, you know, assured I felt on set because of the experiences that I had, that thinking of making it 5-10 years earlier when I was a young buck and didn't really know things, I mean, I would have made such a worse film. So it's, you know, all those things are okay. That's the advice I would give.
Beautiful. Mike?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I try and remember that every day as well. That's something that definitely I've been working through. But I think, you know, I think trust your instincts was what I was going to say. Just like there's so many opportunities where, you know, you get given, you know, advice or, you know, this is both on set, like, you know, visually trust your instincts, trust what, you know, the imagery that, you know, you feel is right for the moment, but also like, you know, in kind of working around the film industry and you know, you make choices and some will be wrong and some will be right. And everything leads to kind of where you are now. And you know, my instincts have gotten me here and for better or for worse. That's, you know,
Definitely for the better,
wouldn't
Mark.
change it. Yeah, no, thank you. Wouldn't change it. And you just got to trust yourself sometimes.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, lads. It's been an absolute privilege, and I'm sure we'll see each other soon enough.
Thanks,
Have a good
boys.
day,
Thanks for
boys.
having us.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.
What a great conversation with the both of them, both Matt and Mike, and how they collaborated on it and got it all made, and it was brilliant. I forgot to add in the intro, it was actually, and you obviously heard it in the podcast, but it was shot here in the Adelaide Hills, which is fantastic. It's great to see that they're supporting local filmmaking, SA Film Corp, so it's great to see. If you want to learn more about the film and Matt and Mike's work, there will be links to Matt and Mike's websites and their Instagrams in the description below. You can see a bit of their work and what they've been doing. If you want to learn more about Twin Times, our Instagrams and all that will be linked in the description. If you are on Spotify, if you could give us a rating out of 5 stars and give us a follow, that'd be fantastic. And if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Other than that, hope you enjoyed yourselves, Matt and Mike, and the rest of you's watching. We wish you nothing but peace and love throughout the rest of the week, and we'll see you in the next one.